what I find as a woman who's writing and reporting on women in sports, I get the question a lot, not from my colleagues, from outsiders, and sometimes from colleagues, I will say. There's every once in a while. But is the goal to write about professional male athletes? I find that so offensive beyond belief. Because if that was my goal, that's what I would be doing.
Right.
And I have done that already. I don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
I want to, first and foremost, tell the most compelling stories that are in sports.
Everyone, I'm very excited to introduce my next guest for so many reasons. She is such a force in the sports journalism world. She's a writer for ESPN, ESPNW. Basically, if there's a story to be told or a profile to be made, especially for females or women in sports, you're going to see it from her. She has become such a dear friend of mine. Our puppies love to play together. We now go on brunch dates so our puppies can hang, and we're moms, we just get to chill. So without further ado, Charlotte Gibson, welcome to the party.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy
I'm
that
happy
you're
to be
here.
at the party.
Yeah, the par-t. That's right. So my producers and I, we love a good pun, and we wanted to actually start out our pod in a fun way with a little bit of foreplay. So we have rapid-fire questions for you.
Let's do it.
Are you ready? So first thing to come to mind. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay, here we go. You wake up and golf doesn't exist. What is your new passion?
Dogs.
Always been the passion.
Yeah,
honestly.
that's still my passion. It is actually my passion. But like, I would just be like a dog trainer.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I love that. All right. What's one thing LPGA players do better than PGA Tour players?
Everything.
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 Just everything.
Everything.
Poise.
Yeah, sorry. PGA? What's that?
What are we talking
about?
I don't know. Okay. You get to add one new rule to golf that shakes things up. What is it?
Oh, God. This is like a hard one.
Yeah, sorry, this was a bit...
Because this is hard because I'm not a pro player, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, hey, guess what? Pick up your ball if you're not doing well and let's just go. So they can't do that. But if you are just playing casually, please just pick up your ball if you're not doing well. But I do think there are some really archaic old school rules. And I think they just might need to open up that rule book and let's do a complete rehaul.
Yeah.
I love what's happening at LPGA right now with the slow play violations.
That's true.
That's huge. So that would be mine, but they're already doing it.
Yes.
So great.
Yeah.
So I guess great minds think alike.
Okay,
but
there you go.
Yeah, they're doing it, which I love because I think that's a huge issue, which, I'm jumping ahead, we can get into. But people don't want to be out there for 5-6 hours watching.
Yeah. I get that. So and so for those of you who are not familiar with the golf rule book, it's a book.
It's a book. It's a real book.
It's a book. There's ways that you're supposed to drop, like from your knee. There are places you're supposed to stand. There's so much etiquette to it. So we can also get into that later, but we're not done with rapid fire, and that was not very rapid fire, but we do like the answer. So that's okay. Okay, next. Have you ever gotten ghosted by an athlete for an interview?
Oh, all the time.
Okay, name names.
All the time. I mean, I think right now I'm in a position where I have a lot of athletes who are very eager to work with me.
What a great place to be.
Which is an amazing place to be. But, early days, I definitely got ghosted. And I feel like I've said yes, but to name a huge name, I don't want to put them out there like that. No one in the women's space. I will say no one in the women's space.
Cool.
So women's space, they have been very eager.
Good.
But I think also part of it is the trust. They know that when I'm on a story with them or ESPN's on a story with them, it's going to be handled with care.
Yeah.
Men's side, when I used to work at ESPN, the magazine, we got ghosted all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, Serena never wanted to work with us. So that is a woman name, but she's Serena Williams. She doesn't have to work with anyone.
She's dancing on the stage right now,
She doesn't have to do anything.
But I get it. Okay. All right. Who would be the best and worst LPGA player to go out on a night with?
Okay, best would be Charlie Hull. I'd go out. Yeah, I'd go out with her in a second.
I knew you'd say that.
I think anyone would, to be honest. Just everything she's doing for golf, so fun, and she just has her own personality and she's bringing a flair to it that honestly we need.
Yes.
Worst person? Savage. That's savage. Honestly, for me, it's like
I had to actually think about it too.
Lexi Thompson.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, Lexi. I just don't. I don't think.
I think she just got her
because
routine.
she's so serious.
Yeah, she's not going out right now.
Yeah, she's not going out, and that's the thing. And when I go out, I want to have fun.
We're gonna have fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's not anything against Lexi. It's just like she's very serious.
Yeah.
And she's
got a routine.
definitely not going out past 8 p.m. And I'm definitely going out past 8 p.m.
She's definitely going to wake up for a 5 a.m. workout.
Exactly.
And we're not going.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't want to feel guilty. Don't make me feel guilty.
I get that. Okay. One more. Who in golf would make the best reality TV star? So I'm going to pick Charlie Hull again. Yeah.
I think she is one right now that people are very interested in.
Yes.
And, it's more than just the cigarettes because that's one part of it. Also, she's British. So, everyone relax. But, she is someone that I think has this flair to her. And, she talks about her training in the gym and how she doesn't train for golf. I think that's fascinating. She definitely loves fashion. So I'd watch that whole thing.
Yeah.
I love what she's doing with her sponsors. So I would love to watch a reality show with her. It would give us The Only Way is Essex, but Charlie Hull version.
Yes.
Which I would watch in a second.
I love that. She should actually really think about that. I think,
she should.
And it's funny because when she is in the media, her one-liners just hit. And she's very much I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about what any of you say. I'm actually pretty healthy. I do what I want to do and deal with it.
And I think she would give you the most personality.
Yes.
I just don't see anyone else on tour right now that I think would be riveting enough.
Right.
To give us, let me sit down on a Wednesday evening.
Yeah.
After work.
Yeah.
With a glass of wine and let me watch this.
Yeah. Good point. Well, we will get into all the personalities into golf later, but we have to start from the very beginning. So that was rapid fire. That was a little bit of foreplay. That was fun. Okay.
That's so I'm let's take it a little farther.
Yeah.
Let's not let's go a little deeper there.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started about your journey. Well, first of all, we met, I think 3-4 years ago now. We met at Michelle Wee's house at a party, which I'm that's wild to me. That's actually where we actually formally met.
At her birthday party.
At her birthday.
I love that.
We filmed a fun TikTok.
Yes.
We're going to insert the TikTok.
I hope you do because I'm not a dancer. So please, I'm speaking directly to the camera. I am a athlete, not a dancer.
Yeah.
Do not judge me.
Just a bunch of bloopers, to be honest. But ever since then, we've just stayed connected. And I feel like we got really close in the last year and a half, especially, which has been really cool to get to know you and your journey. But our listeners here don't know your journey quite yet, so we had to start from the very beginning. How did golf step into your life?
So I was 13 when golf came into my life. Okay. It was the summer before my freshman year of high school. So. Okay. Basically, I like to say, imagine me right now because I looked exactly the same, but just a way shyer version of myself.
Okay.
And I had played softball and I'd played basketball, volleyball. I was just the sports girl. So I was playing a little bit of everything at that point. But I was very shy and I was very independent. And my mom signed me up for golf camp at the local public course, Westlake Golf Course. And that was the rule. You had to be doing a sport or, something in the summer. You couldn't just be chilling, hanging out. Always had to be doing something. And prior to that, I was always at UCLA softball camp, Pepperdine volleyball camp, Pepperdine basketball camp. But at that point, you're 13, you're trying to figure out what you like, what's interesting. My mom signs me up for this golf camp and I'm like, you are kidding me. Golf?
So lame.
Really? And I show up and I'm one of two girls there. And the rest are little boys, middle school boys or even younger elementary school boys. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Then I realized why she put me in it because it just clicked. Everything clicked for me. I was good at it, number one. It came pretty natural. But I loved the mental aspect of it. And I loved the solidarity part of it. I'd been on team sports for so long and I love a team, don't get me wrong, but I also loved just being able to go out on the course by myself and I'm competing with myself.
For sure.
So at that point I'm 13 and I'm about to go to, about to turn 14 that summer and then I decide to try out for the girls golf team at Westlake High School and I make it and so far so good. I'm having fun. And then I meet other girls that play golf, and there was still just a small group of us. But, I kind of fell in love with it. I was playing softball still at that time. Okay. So softball and golf, which
dual athlete,
but not the sports to be a dual athlete in. And I think a lot of baseball players could tell you there's a reason why they wait to start golf until after they retire, because playing the two at the same time is very difficult.
Like swing-wise?
Swing-wise,
okay,
yeah.
Okay,
so,
got it.
I stepped up to the plate for softball that spring season, and it's first at bat.
You're just
I
going
swing
under
for
it?
a low one, and my mom from the stands is like, "This is not golf." Like, it would be your own mom,
That makes sense.
which we love, but then I kind of realized, like, wait, do I even like softball as much as I like golf? Like, it really just became a passion.
I love that.
And something I loved, and I thought, well, let's keep, going at it. Let's see how we do. Let's get better. And then just like most young golfers, you have one swing coach, then you get a new swing coach, and you get a little bit better. You get new clubs. So I just kind of had that natural progression. And then it was college time. What am I going to do? Am I going to go to college for golf? Am I going to play? There was really, for me, no option to abandon golf completely. But I also was like, I don't want sports to be my entire life, which is so funny.
Because what are we doing? We're here
right now
talking about sports.
And, I think as a teenage girl, I think that's a fair, assessment in the moment. You're thinking like you're seeing your friends and people, go be in sororities and do all of that. But for me, I did know that like I wanted golf in my life. I just wasn't sure if I wanted to go to a D1 school where golf was my entire life.
Absolutely.
And I did have a lot of other, passions and things I was interested in, journalism being one of them.
Right.
And I ended up at University of California, Santa Cruz. Banana slug. So if nobody knows this, I'm like, a banana slug is literally what it sounds like. It is a slug that looks like a banana, and that was our mascot.
That's
and,
so funny.
Paso Tiempo was our home course.
Okay.
And it doesn't get better than that, to
because
be honest.
you played in college golf.
I played in college,
yes.
yeah. So I decided to commit there. It's D3. So that's the beauty of it. D3, you're like, hey, I'm going into this, but I know I'm not going to have this rigorous travel schedule,
Right.
And really the traveling was the hardest part for me. I'd never left home before other than those small local LA camps. I'm born and raised in LA. So for me, I was like, well, Santa Cruz is close enough, but far enough.
Yeah.
Gives me a little taste, but also I can discover like what I'm interested in outside of golf. And I worked at the radio station. I had a radio show with one of my best friends, a Riot Girl show, which is punk rock, all-female bands. It was called Bikini Kill, so we had that. And I was the sporting director. So, I kind of always had this place of like, okay, I can do multiple things at once, and like golf doesn't have to define me. But I do love it. Like,
and
I
so
love
you were still able to so you were able to basically touch on everything that you love and do now.
Yes.
So you still were able to kind of keep everything together.
Exactly. And that's where like I honed in on that at Santa Cruz. And, I got to play on the golf team, which was amazing, and Paso Tiempo, which is an Alistair McKenzie design. Most people like have that course on their bucket list. I was playing there multiple times a week, and I actually worked in the pro shop at one point. And, so that was really cool for me, and that's an experience that honestly I'll never forget. But then I went to Columbia for grad school.
Right.
And now I'm in New York City, and I'm focused on journalism and a crash course of journalism, 10-month program. I'm not golfing at all.
Right.
I'm living in the city. I'm 21 years old. I'm broke in the city. I'm not golfing. And, for me, I thought, well, I don't really know where golf's going to fit into my world. I have no idea. And that was kind of the beauty of it, though. Like, I didn't know, it wasn't forefront of my mind. And then I took a big break from golf.
Wild.
For a long time until I moved back to LA. Next thing you know, I think I'd posted one golf video. I was at the driving range. And all of a sudden, it just like the golf world in LA kind of popped up.
And then
like,
now you found
now
your
I'm
people.
in it. Yeah. But then still it was a little trial and error, right? Like I was at a place where I'd taken such a big break from it. And I'd played competitively, and I just wanted to have fun. So I needed to find a group of people that I could have fun with. And it really wasn't until this year that I found Bunker Club.
Oh, that's right.
That I was like, wait, now I have a community.
Yeah.
of people that love golf, but also want to have fun, enjoy themselves, of women,
which
is very,
golf.
and that's like very, very critical, right?
Yes.
Like women, for me, I mean, when I was in Connecticut and I lived in Bristol, Connecticut, where the headquarters are for ESPN, I was surrounded by a lot of men. And that's who, those guys were playing golf. And sometimes you're like, I was just with you in the office all day. I don't really want to go play golf with you. And it's hard when you are the token woman on the golf course, and that's something that I know you can relate to.
Absolutely.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was a kind of a long journey to get there.
Right.
To get to loving golf again.
Right.
I'll say that.
So let's now touch on your career. So you went to Columbia, right? And at first, you were actually not even going to go into sports, right? You were going to go into political journalism.
Yeah.
And so then you made before we get on the next question, what ultimately made that switch in your mind?
I had a professor at Columbia Journalism School. She was actually the Master of Arts professor, the head of the Master of Arts program. I was in the Master of Science program, but she taught a class called The Art of the Interview, which I love, obviously.
That.
The art of the interview is something I'm always fascinated by, which is why I'm a journalist, probably. But she sat me down close to when the year was kind of coming to a close, and she said, why are you fighting? It's so hard to be, like, you don't want to be a sports reporter. Like, you're fighting it. But I think you would be great at it. But you're fighting it hardcore. Like, I can tell that you are trying not to do sports stories.
Wow.
And yet, when you do sports stories, you're really excelling and you're blossoming and you're bringing something that we need in the sports space. And I said to her, well, I'm looking around me and I'm surrounded by peers who are doing stories about wars and, like these just unbelievable projects that are making huge impacts. And she looked at me and said, why do you believe that your sports stories can't make an impact?
Absolutely. And now here we are.
And that's really what altered my mind, to be honest, because I think for so long I was pigeonholed, right? You are a young blonde woman from California. You say you want to do sports. And I always got the do you want to be Erin Andrews?
Right.
Thank you so much for thinking that I could be Erin Andrews. We adore Erin Andrews. She's a pioneer in this field. But I did not want to be Erin Andrews. I didn't want to be a sideline reporter. I didn't really even want to be on air. So I feared, that if I got into sports, I would just be like, that's who you are.
I see.
You're not a writer. You're an on-air girl. You're going to be asking like, hey, how was the game? Those types of questions, which just didn't move me. And so it was a professor, though, that was like snap out of it. What are you talking about? You can do whatever you want with the stories. And now, I'm 10 years at ESPN this summer. I truly do believe that. I feel that. I feel like my stories make an impact. And
absolutely.
I feel like I've crafted it. I've crafted this space for myself. And it took a lot of time and effort. It doesn't happen overnight. And I wasn't expecting it to happen overnight. But it took some time for me to be like, okay, you can be in this space and you can own it. But you can redefine what it looks like, and you can also redefine it in multiple different spots too.
Absolutely. So take me back then. So after Columbia, you soon thereafter got ESPN, right? And then you said that your first year was extremely humbling. And I am all about talking about the grind. I guess everyone knows that about me because we're just workhorses, right?
But we love the grind.
We love the grind, though, right? That's part of it. And I think people sometimes, especially with social media, you wake up and you're like, well, she's a writer, I'm going to be a writer. Or, she's an influencer, I'm going to be one. But again, you have been at ESPN for a long time. It was a very humbling experience to get to where you are. Take us back to how it all began and what that first year was like and how you got to where you are now.
I love that question because I mentor a lot of young women in this space and I'm all about the grind. And I tell them if you want to be, it's not easy. And you better be prepared to be humbled. Here I am, college golfer, had all of these things on my resume, internships, radio station, sports director, all of this stuff. Then I have my master's from Columbia. And the position I'm offered is I like to say it felt like the equivalent of working in a mailroom in the entertainment industry. You are in the basement, and I was literally in the basement of one of the buildings at ESPN.
Well,
and
dream
it was
job, and I'm in a basement.
and oh, by the way, like you're LA and you're just living in New York, but now you're going to move to Connecticut, a place that you don't know anyone. And I knew that was going to happen, right? Like I was ready for that. It was a place in my life where I'm like, you're going to go where the career takes you. ESPN calls. You're not going to say no. At least that's where I was at. And I was a really, really small fish in a big pond. Still am. I'm okay with that because I had to put in the work. And I was on a project position, and it was called content curator, which is essentially a very fancy name for you get to cut first take highlights and game highlights.
This is where you started? This is what you started with?
And the extent of your writing is headlines and captions. So,
wow.
Which, honestly, headlines and captions are really hard to write.
So
here I was, 22 years old. I'm like, I'm going to write the best headlines and captions for every single, clip that I cut. And they're all on ESPN.com and social media. And I'm like, that's my headline. Okay, I got that in there. I made it clear, though, from the beginning, like, I want to be a writer. I want to be a reporter. And as it goes, the person that hired me was laid off about a month into me being in Bristol.
Oh, no.
And I was worried. I was worried because he was a big advocate for me. He knew that I was a golfer. He knew that I had an interest in women's sports. And then he's gone. And I'm thinking, well, now what do I do? Where do I go? I'm also working really odd shifts at ESPN. And a lot of people at ESPN do work odd shifts because it's 24/7.
Right.
So I was working really odd shifts. So sometimes I wasn't in the office when the executives or the people I needed to talk to were there.
Right.
So I had to really navigate. And my saving grace was ESPN, the magazine, is still here. And it's in Bristol. That's where I want to be. I always wanted to work at a magazine. I mean, that's a cliche. It's a young journalist's dream. And, I grew up on like Carrie Bradshaw and all of those movies, that the rom-coms were like, they were magazine editors. I wanted to be that. I have no shame in saying I wanted to be that. And the magazine existed. So I'm like, I need to get over there. Walked in the building one day and just met the research chief, George Milkoff, and he said, look, I'm going to have a part-time fact-checking position available. But it's actually a step below the job you currently have.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like, I don't care. Put my name in the hat for that.
Okay.
I want that role. And I knew that some of the best journalists in the industry, not just the sports industry, just journalism industry, were fact-checkers. Like, let's be real. If your facts are wrong, there's no credibility.
I forget that's even a role.
It's a role, it's a very important role.
It's important.
And unfortunately, a lot of media outlets and organizations don't have that role anymore. ESPN, we do. And George Milkoff was my first boss at ESPN, the magazine, and he gave me a chance. And, you have to take a research test, which means, like, you have to be an encyclopedia of sports knowledge.
Yeah.
I was not an encyclopedia of sports knowledge. I loved sports, but I was competing against men who were up at 2 a.m. watching international soccer games.
Wow.
That wasn't me.
That's
I was
wild.
maybe watching WNBA games and watching NWSL and things like that. But I was also watching Real Housewives, and I was, I wasn't, my whole world, wasn't immersed in just that. But they knew that, like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be at the magazine. So fact checker, reporter, researcher, associate editor, and then last year I signed a talent contract with ESPN.
It's amazing.
That took 9 years, though. So that's what I tell young women, like, it took 9 years, and it doesn't mean that just last year was the first time I got a chance to write. I got the chance to write and report when I was a fact checker at the magazine, which was incredible and amazing for me. But my first big break for writing was I knew women's golf. We didn't have a women's golf reporter.
Wow.
Here's this, 20-something fact checker, reporter, researcher at the magazine who knows women's golf. Let's let her write some tournament previews and, interview players, and let's have her do that. And I was ecstatic to do that.
That's amazing. So basically, if you never stepped foot in the magazine building, then you probably wouldn't even be in the position you are today. Like you had to literally go mold your career, get in front of the right people so that you can get into the position of, I'm going to be a writer, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be impactful in this way.
Exactly.
I think that's amazing.
Exactly. Thank you.
I mean, it's just a lot. It's like, it takes a lot of balls to be able to really shift your own career, right?
Yes.
And you could have just kept saying yes to whoever was in charge of you, but you literally said, no, I'm going to do it my way, and so be it.
Right. And that's a really scary thing to kind of take control of that.
Right.
And also like put your faith into something that might or might not work out.
Right.
But I do say I feel like I do have lucky girl syndrome. I really and you could believe in it or not, but for me, I'm really blessed with the opportunities I've been given and it's not lost on me. I live a blessed life. I'm very grateful and I work really hard at it.
Absolutely.
And so the lucky girl syndrome is part of the fact that I just work really hard.
Yeah.
And I make sure that when I'm presented with certain opportunities, I'm taking advantage of those.
Right.
And I'm not letting them pass me by. I get a call, you got to move to Bristol, Connecticut in 2 weeks. I'm there.
Right. Right.
So those are the things that you're like, I'm going to be in these spaces, whether or not they invited me to those spaces.
That's literal facts. I mean, we one time we went to an NWSL game together, and the way Charlotte just stormed into rooms, and I'm like, I think we're like in the private meeting of Angel City, like they're all kumbayaing, and we're just walking inside the room, and she's like, no, this is how you have to be. You just got to walk into the room like you own it. We're badgeless, and I'm like, I just wanted a picture with the Thompson sisters.
And I'm like, okay, easy. We're here.
Let's walk in and
like,
it.
Here's Julie Ehrman. Here's the owner of the team, and she waves at us. She knows me. And she knows me because I've been in those spaces and I've proven to myself that I can be in those spaces. But sometimes you got to ask for forgiveness later.
Yes, which is what I'm learning, especially from you.
I'm always like, just grab my arm and like, let's go full charge.
So you recently posted on social media and you used the hashtag women in men's fields, and I think it's so obviously I'm in it too in a different way. Like golf is a very male dominated space, but I guess I forget that sports journalism is still so male dominated. But that being said, have you seen it improve? How has that journey been for you in the last, I guess, 9 years now?
Yeah, honestly, the last decade, I've seen it improve greatly.
That's great.
However,
okay,
I am a long-form writer. I do profile features. I'm a features writer, reporter. When it comes to women who are features writers in the sports space, there's very few of us. And, it's changing. It definitely is changing from when I started. There's a lot more today than when I started, but it's still a pretty small group. And that's really, honestly, maybe just people don't want to be doing long-form journalism anymore. Sure. Maybe that's in part to it. Maybe social media has just caught on so much that people are realizing, well, I could write a 3,000-word story, or I could hop on a TikTok and talk about it for 3 minutes, and that gets more views.
Right.
So that might be in part for the reason why, but I still find my inbox flooded with young women saying, I want to talk to you about journalism. I want to talk to you about writing.
Right.
And it, for me, has changed. I didn't have a mentor when I started at ESPN. I didn't have a mentor for a really long time until I joined this features unit group, the Enterprise and Investigative Unit. And I am surrounded by women who are powerhouses in the investigative space, and women who I've gone through the ranks with as well. But, we're in it together. So I'm lucky that my department is full of powerhouse women who are in this space, but we are isolated.
I get it.
On camera is different. We do have like those amazing trailblazers, and we have Malika, and we have Elle, and we have these women who are just really doing their thing. But when you talk about like the written word, that's a different story.
Right, not that many.
And it's still one of those things where it feels like we're in this club, and that's cool. We want to be in a club together, but you look around and you're like, okay, there's more men still. And what I find as a woman who's writing and reporting on women in sports, I get the question a lot, not from my colleagues, from outsiders, and sometimes from colleagues, I will say. There's every once in a while. But is the goal to write about professional male athletes. I find that so offensive beyond belief, because if that was my goal, that's what I would be doing.
Right.
And I have done that already. I don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
I want to, first and foremost, tell the most compelling stories that are in sports.
Yeah.
Just so happens, I believe that most of the women's stories in sports are the most compelling right now.
I agree.
And I take great pride in really elevating and amplifying voices of women in sports. So for me, do you want to write about a guy in sports? Not really.
Absolutely not.
We're
good.
And it just so happens I'm working on a story right now about an incredible athlete from USC. He is a man. Shocking, amazing, wonderful. His story is so compelling and beautiful, and it's a story that I've been really advocating for many years. Those stories are going to come about, but I do find myself really just drawn to women in sports, like storytelling, because those stories matter.
Right. So going into women in sports, clearly there has been such a positive shift. So I would like to hear, I guess, from your perspective, like, when did you feel like women's sports went through a big shift? Like, was it characters in sport? Like, what was it for you?
I think the shift during the pandemic was a big shift. I think women's college basketball had the moment where, Sedona Prince, like, she called out. The inequalities for women's basketball and college basketball, the weight room debate. That was huge. I think that elevated it. Elevated it because also social media was taking off at that time. TikTok was taking off. So now we have the attention of millennials, Gen Z. People are paying attention, right? So I think like that was a huge moment. And then you had the WNBA also.
Yeah, that
and
like
WNBA
catapulted.
Is just, they are changing the way that people view women's sports.
Right.
And you can't really talk about like the evolution of women's sports without acknowledging everything that the players in the W have done.
Right. It's
for
really
women's sports. The characters. And the ones who aren't afraid to speak up and share their voice and share their opinions and talk about, this isn't cool. We're not saying that we should be paid exactly the same as the men, but pay us fairly.
Absolutely.
And look, women's soccer is a huge part of that. I think, though, this shift has really happened. I'm not going to say it's the Caitlin Clark shift. I'm not going to Caitlin Clark has definitely elevated the space. Angel Reese elevated the space. That rivalry, too, we need more of that.
Yes,
The
I
more
agree.
that we can get that, the better.
Absolutely.
It draws people in. We see that on the men's side all the time. We want the drama. Let's be real. We want the drama. Men give us drama. Men give us drama in sports every single day.
Yeah.
And women, I find, have been so worried about appearance and how they're going to be characterized by the media and by the audience, by fans, that they don't want to ruffle any feathers. But now we're seeing like, you know what? I'm here. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And that's powerful.
Right.
And that's what I hope to see for the LPGA.
I was just going to ask you, because it's clear that women's golf is in an upward trajectory, right? But it's like, what is it that, and this is always a topic in every single pod of that I've had so far, what is it that you think that they need so that we can have our WNBA and WSL moment?
LPGA has been around for what? Almost 100 years?
Yeah.
A long time. And there have been a lot of game changers in the LPGA. A lot of women, the founders alone, what they did.
Right.
There was a moment years and years ago. I don't know the exact moment, but the LPGA was like, we're going to have childcare at every single tournament.
Yeah.
And we're going to make sure that mothers who play in the LPGA are taken care of. Huge moment. That was a moment that could have been blown up in the best way possible. Because they set that precedent. They set that tone. We're just now seeing that in the NWSL. They are just now not allowing, because allowing is the wrong word.
Right.
But, basically saying like, hey, we are going to have these resources for you. And so you can be a mother, you can be a player.
Yeah.
You don't have to decide. You don't have to choose. You don't have to make that decision.
Right.
Your babies can be with you. Your family can be with you. All of those things. LPGA did that. a long time ago. That was a moment that could have made a really big cultural shift.
Yeah.
And it didn't.
Right.
I don't think it did.
No, definitely not.
It went under the radar. I think most people don't even know that that is a resource for mothers on tour. And that's something that a lot of the leagues need to implement and are implementing. I think what we find with LPGA golfers and golfers in general, and I think it's due to the nature of the sport.
Yes.
You are buttoned up.
Yeah.
You are serious.
Traditional.
Yeah. It's the heteronormative aspect of the game.
Yeah.
To have an opinion is to be wrong.
But we can try and, I guess, influence, let's say, the women in the game now to try and speak. So if you could give the girls on tour or the girls, any girls that's really coming into the game, what would you tell them so that we can have our huge pivotal moment that we deserve?
First, I would say, talk to me. Let's talk, because
share.
That's a huge roadblock I do find with women's golf is this desire to have publicity.
Right.
And then we go, okay, great, let's do it. And then you're saying no, or you're being skittish, or you're keeping it very surface level and very, I like to call it fluff. I don't write fluff pieces.
Like, what's the story?
Yeah, I don't write fluff pieces. And so I will say Rose Zhang last year was incredible.
Amazing.
And she went there with me. She was vulnerable and she got emotional. And we had a really, really beautiful profile feature on Rose in the summer on ESPN.com as a result. It also took months and months of me making sure that Rose felt comfortable with me and trusted me. I understand that not every journalist has that luxury. I do, and I'm so grateful for that. But if you cut out, it shouldn't have to take months and months and months for every single player. Yeah. Rose was a very specific one. We knew we wanted to do a long-form feature. I was in it for the long haul with her, and I wanted her to go there with me, and she did. But what I fear is that women on tour are so afraid to even have any opinion.
Yeah.
And we saw that in this election cycle. We've seen it in every election cycle for the last couple years, current events.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the men aren't any better. They just are kind of living in their live and PGA world. So they just think that is having a position on something for them. But I really would hope that the women on tour understand that, like, the more we see who you are, the more people are going to want to follow you.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the slogan that the LPGA had for a long time, hugs, not handshakes. Why not a handshake?
Yeah.
You don't need to hug everyone you meet, but I think that kind of facilitated that, hey, we have to be friends.
Yeah.
Let's keep it peaceful. Let's keep it PG.
Right. Don't ruffle any feathers.
Don't ruffle any feathers.
Yeah.
And some women, they don't want to ruffle feathers. And I'm not saying, you have to go be a rebel and take a stance on something. I just would like them to take a stance on anything.
I just like you to speak in general.
Just speak in general. And don't also let it fall on the shoulders of the top 10.
I've been able to interview a few LPGA players now and just have really close quarter conversations. And I think what's so hard is that within the LPGA Tour, it seems that there is like a culture there and a pattern that just can't be changed, right? It's kind of like the LPGA players are given like these media answers and they're like, okay, we're not making the tour mad. And the tour is also trying to help them, but also still trying to keep it very safe. And I'm like, no, we just need like a do-over. We need a do-over. We need to all have a kumbaya and just like, players, tell us what you really want and what you really need.
Right.
And the people working for the tour, you make it happen. We all befriend one another. We work together and we're going to get there.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know why that's so
I
hard.
think it's hard because there are certain players that just want to play golf.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you are a professional athlete, you can't say that you want more people to watch and to be involved in the sport and pay attention and care about the sport if you are going to just show up and play golf. You need to do a little bit more.
Right.
We look at men in any league, and the top athletes, some of them are just like, I just want to, play basketball. I just want to play football. But they still are outspoken on certain topics.
Yeah.
They say that, but they still are talking and, giving interviews or not giving interviews, but it becomes a moment. And so I would love for the women to just find their voice maybe a little bit more. And I think that falls on the media. I think it falls on us. We have to do a better job of finding those stories, finding those characters, and respecting that some of them do just want to play golf. That's great. Then you better win tournaments too. You better be winning tournaments. But let's make sure that we are giving you a voice and it's not cookie cutter.
Yes.
I think people are done with the cookie cutter, and I think people want real, honest, raw conversations. And let the men do what they're going to do. Let's stop comparing the two tours because they're different.
Yes,
they're
absolutely.
so different. And I would love to see, more group events, essentially.
Yeah.
What's happening with TGL, like that would be great.
Yeah.
If we could have a women's.
Include women. I think that's actually the intention.
That would be amazing.
Have men and women together. So I think that would really, really amplify and bring out the women's personalities without having to feel so controlled, and I think that's the goal.
And you just allow them to be in a space that they feel safe,
Absolutely.
right?
That's the most
biggest
thing.
Yeah, and that's why I don't know if some of them are just not feeling that. I think it's the travel schedule part of it too.
Yeah.
It's a grind,
It is. All year round sport.
All year round, and if you don't make the cut, you're not making money. So, I think a lot of people who maybe are casual golf fans, they don't understand that. So they do question, they wonder. But, it would be great, too, to see a professional women's event at Augusta. Let's put these women in places, and that's happening with the U.S. Women's Open. But let's keep doing it. Let's keep raising the bar. And that's what I would like to see. Let's not just settle or accept, okay, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Like you said, let's just keep raising the bar, or let's just, reinvent the whole thing.
Reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
We're already in the trajectory of going up, and I feel like we're going to have our moment, but I just want us to get there sooner, I
do too. And I think the more that Charlie Hull, finds her voice on tour, is who she is, the cigarette moment is it's silly, but also I loved it because she was being herself.
Yes, exactly. And
that's all we
need.
We weren't saying applauding it because we like smoking. No, that's not it. Yeah. I'm anti-smoking, but I was applauding it because she was being unapologetically herself. And I want to see more of that.
How has it been covering women's sports in general versus women's golf when you're trying to do profiles?
So this is a great question, Tish, because I actually haven't really sat down and thought about it, because I'm just in the moment. I think, I'll say I do a lot of women's basketball stories and women's soccer stories. And
I would assume they're probably more open.
They are more open. Okay. And I think part of it is the nature of their sport.
Yeah.
The nature of the bravado, the confidence that they have to have when they step out on the pitch.
Also a team sport too. You got your people behind you.
You have your girls with you. You have a whole team behind you.
Yeah.
I think that makes a difference.
Sure.
I do find that golfers just need that safe space a little bit more. And look, I always say if someone was like, hey, can I write a profile about your life? I'd be like, no, thank you. No, thanks. I'm good. So, I understand that it's a lot to ask of these athletes. It's a lot to ask of the athletes, the families. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so I do think that with golfers, there's just that extra layer of let's make sure the time is dedicated to them, that safe space. But I do that with all of my athletes. I'm not kind of singling them out. I'm not okay, it's a golfer, so I got to do this.
Yeah.
That's just who I am as a reporter. I love interviewing, and I love interviewing for the fact that it's a vulnerable space.
Yeah.
And I always want to go deep. That's just who I am. It's I don't really care for surface level. That doesn't interest me. It doesn't move me. But with all of my young women athletes and male athletes, you have to take the time. And just earning their trust is huge. So the difference is, I think, the bravado, perhaps, and some of them, especially my, girls who are number one in their class for basketball. They're number one for a reason because on the court, they're incredible, but they've got that swagger. They have that whole thing. They want to be forward-facing, and they know that in women's basketball, they have to be forward-facing.
Yeah.
They're leaning into that moment, so they're ready for it. Hey, come out to this practice. Come out to this game. Come out. Let's do whatever. I do have athletes where it's a little bit more of like, okay, maybe you can come out. Okay, you came out to this,
I feel like it's
this
a little
practice.
more golf attitude too.
Yeah, and okay,
it's
so
intimate.
and almost like there's a secret there. And I'm like, just trust me.
Just let me go.
Yeah, like I'm like, I am a safe space for you.
Yeah.
And that might sound really bizarre because a journalist doesn't seem like a safe space, but I'm doing a profile feature on you. And I am also on this journey with you. A lot of my subjects are trying to figure out who they are.
Yeah.
And through the process of these profiles, we aren't 100% identifying who they are because that's impossible for anyone at any point in their life to know 100% with certainty who they are.
Right.
But I find a lot of the times after the fact, these young women, their families, they go, whoa, we didn't even know that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Or that's what I was, I didn't even realize that.
Right.
And you helped me understand a little bit more about my characteristics, my habits, and what I want. Maybe, you know, and then with Rose, she was so incredible with that because we really just dedicated that time to what is your story? Yeah. Where are you at in your career? And, what do we want it to be now? And what do we want to put out there? And it is scary to be vulnerable and to feel like, you don't have kind of the shield up.
Right. I know. You probably had to become like her family, especially.
And
really
honestly, being close with the families is really important to me, especially for the young women that I work with. And, I want their parents to know that your daughter is safe with me.
Absolutely.
You're in good hands.
Yeah.
I'm also not trying to pull a fast one on anyone. And I'm an ethical journalist, and the facts are going to be right. We can't ignore facts either. But, running through, this is what on the record means. This is what on background means. Off the record, some of these people, this is the first time they're having these big moments.
Right.
I get that privilege to tell a lot of their first big profiles, and I'm so grateful for that. But with that comes the nature of, okay, this is what we're going to do, walking them through it, getting the parents comfortable with it. And also having, a great team behind me that I can lean on.
Right.
So I think I kind of always try to put myself in their shoes.
This is, again, something that you and I were just chatting about outside of this pod, that there's so much interest in women's sports right now. There's so many people that want to invest in golf. But what's so interesting about it is that the people who really want the growth of the game to happen also seemingly are not comfortable with perhaps the newer voices in the game, right? And I think that's the hardest part. And you're someone who is in hard media, and I feel like you're very accepting of any and all voices. So I guess that being said, how do we change that mindset so that we can all just grow for the greater good?
Yeah. I just feel like for me, I want us all to kumbaya.
Yes.
And to understand that my work will just be elevated by your work.
Yeah.
Your work will be elevated by my work. You are not claiming to be a features writer.
Right.
I am not claiming to be a influencer.
Right.
Podcast host. I think identifying our roles in all of this is very important.
Right.
And understanding that your roles can change.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I want, especially the women in sports media, women in golf media, we can all be in this together, and we don't have to be competitive with each other and fight over it.
Exactly.
And, this is not high school.
Right.
I already went to high school. I'm good. I'm
done here.
I'm done. Yeah. I went to high school. I'm a grown adult now. I understand that, I'm secure in my career. And I think that's what it comes down to, right? People who are going to maybe criticize, talk poorly, talk behind our backs, they're not in a secure place. And that's when I just say, I will pray for you. And, I hope you find your community. I have found my community.
Yeah.
You, my family, my friends lift me up.
Absolutely.
Find your community that lifts you up so that you don't have to tear people down.
I love that answer. I do love that answer. And I'll add to that I feel like it's something that you're so good at, and I feel like those that really align with us, our own friend group, is that I think those that are really most accepting to change are really the ones that are going to be the ones that will actually grow the sport, right? If you're not accepting to change, then you're going to be left in the dust.
Right.
Like, work together, accept the change. No one's taking your spot. Like, truly let down that competitive or insecure energy.
Yeah.
And we're all going to thrive.
And I think acknowledging, too, like, if you are in this space for the male gaze, that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't pretend you are in this space to elevate women. Let's not flip-flop on that.
Yeah.
Because those are the narratives that then become confusing to the outside world. And then they look at women like us, and they're like, are you just here for the male gaze?
Yeah.
Are you just here?
That's interesting.
That is a big issue I think that we are facing kind of in women's golf right now.
Yeah.
In non-professional women's golf, you know? And I think that's okay. If you just want to post certain photos for the male gaze, more power to you.
Yeah.
I love that for you.
Right.
Own that narrative.
For sure.
Don't knock me down,
Yeah.
though, because
I'm doing something different.
I'm doing something different.
I'm very different.
My followers, I always say, my followers are mostly women.
Yeah.
And that just is what it is, you know, and could be shocking to some, could not be shocking to others. But most of my followers are women. And so for me, I'm, you know, and I'm always for the girls.
Yeah.
Like, I dress for the girls. I do, like, that's just who I am. If that's not who you are, that's okay.
Right.
We accept you for that.
Yeah.
We love you for that. But let's just all understand that all of our roles play a part in how outside perception.
Yes, in the grand scheme of things.
Yes, the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So, like, let's just understand, like, I want to elevate the sport. You want to elevate the sport. I want more young girls and boys to play the sport.
Yeah.
That's my mission.
Absolutely.
I want more young women to be in sports, just in general. That's my mission.
Right. Well, I think we'll end the hard interview at that. Okay. We do have a fun game as we only have a couple minutes. So the game is real or fake headline. This game was customized just for you.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be hard.
Are you ready?
We are in a world of headlines that seem so fake. So
I know.
This is going to be very difficult, but I am ready.
Okay.
Actually, I'm sweating, but that's okay.
Don't be. It's all fun. Okay, first one, real or fake. LPGA player mic'd up during a round drops F-bomb on live TV.
Real.
Absolutely. Charlie Hull, 2023. Are we surprised?
No.
But we love it.
And that's great.
And that's great.
Love it.
Okay, next. NCAA women's golf team forced to withdraw mid-tournament due to a single lost golf bag.
Single lost? That seems fake. You could still keep playing.
You would think, but because of that lost golf bag, it was a real headline.
They had to withdraw?
They had to withdraw. It happened to Oregon State in 23.
Oh, poor Oregon State.
I know.
What?
I know.
I mean, I showed up at golf tournaments. My driver was, got broke and like the travel and everything. And we still played.
I think a whole lost golf bag. Like, without the set. You got to go find a set, I guess.
Yeah, go find a set. Okay.
All right. WNBA star signs endorsement deal with Taco Bell, demands free Crunch Wraps for life.
No, that is fake.
Good job.
That sounds amazing, though.
I could see it happening, but that is fake.
I really hope that someone really after that you write that let's make it a real headline.
Yeah.
Please,
we gotta
somebody
make that happen.
demand Crunch Wraps for life.
Okay, LPGA pro wins a car with a hole-in-one, immediately gives it to her caddy.
That's real.
Good job. Amy Olsen in 2020. Yeah, that was a very,
and
very
she gave it
kind
to Mika.
Yeah. Okay, last one. Tisha Alyn puts an end to rumors about dating Tiger Woods.
Oh, you guys, that's real. No,
it was real.
You had to.
Wasn't it the wildest thing?
You had to. But that's the thing. That's crazy that's a real headline because you're a woman in sports. It's automatic that you want to date an athlete.
It's crazy. And it's like one picture beside me and Tiger, and I'm like, you guys.
I can see it in my mind.
It was just one photo. Yes, I think you know which one. And then I'm like, I'm so gay, guys. But Wow, that's
but that's hard, and
Yes.
that's hard for young women to see because, you know, again, that's a fear. They don't want to come into this space and just be told you're in this space because you want to date an athlete or you're dating an athlete or whatever.
Yeah.
That is very real, and you had to live that.
I know.
And you know what, though? Like, okay.
I'm like, okay, but also no. Very not
But
true,
also
so.
no, and like you are happily engaged.
I'm very
and
engaged, so.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway,
exactly.
That is the game, and that wraps it up. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining the party. I really enjoyed our chat. Where can everyone find you before we let you go?
I mean, you can find me on Instagram. Charlotte Sue.
Okay.
SUE, my middle name. So, you know, this is also fun. Tisha thought that was my last name for a long time.
Oh my gosh, yes, I did think that. So it's not Sue. It's Gibson.
It's Gibson.
That's
but
right.
Charlotte Sue is my handle on Instagram. I post a lot of my stories on there, and I have a couple TV features coming out spring, summer, so you can stay tuned for that.
Yes.
Just Google me.
Yeah,
if you really want to read my stuff
just
too,
Google
just
me.
Google me and you can find it.
Or look at the very end of any ESPN or ESPNW article and you may just see.
Yeah.
Charlotte
And
Gibson.
then also you can subscribe to the ESPNW newsletter, and I write it every month. So
Amazing.
you'll get a little taste of my voice and what I find to be the most, you know, interesting and compelling stories of the month.
Love that.